Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. Tonight we're going to be continuing our adventures in shader collision detection. But before we do, let's check in with the kitties. Ember has reclaimed her spot. Sammy has been taking it a bit recently, which is a new development. Normally, Sammy does not take Ember's spot. Sammy is currently over on the side of the desk. You can see this guy's tail there on the white table. Yes, I see you, buddy. I do. And then Mason and Sherbet are over on the bed. Nice, all 5-sided here. Now, last time, we left off with what I thought was an indexing problem, but it wasn't. So, this is the shader rules buffer. We load this up with things like how many entities there can be, how many collisions there can be, that kind of thing. Boundaries and the like for the shader. Set that up, we set the buffer, everything is good. Then we are going to initialize shader entities. And this is where it went wrong. So you see how this is shader entity bytes. The problem was that it was an old one that was like rules byte. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't rules buffer. We were actually passing the wrong buffer into the update here. Here we go. So shader rules buffer here. We were actually doing shader entities buffer there, which meant that as far as the shader was concerned, the list of entities was the other way around, actually, but you get where I'm going. The list of entities was actually being populated with what's in the rules here, which means just the first 4 were getting populated, and the first one was just max entities, 32,000 in this case, which meant that none of the actual collision checks were happening. Otel, that one is Ember. She is the smallest and the second oldest. She is itty bitty. And welcome. Let's see here. Now let's go through our logic. One of the things that we're going to be changing shortly here is this is going to change from a uint to a vector2. Vector2 array, so that we can have source and destination of, source and target of a collision. Right here, we're just doing the collision as a single thing. If it's the source or the target colliding with the other, then it counts and we'll record it. But instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to record whether each one collides with the other. Forward or backward, essentially. And if either one does, then we'll go through the collision check process here. Are they close enough? And if they're close enough, then we're going to check. We're going to double check the mask here and say which ones should collide. Because if one of them should collide but the other doesn't, we don't want to record that second one. So we're going to encapsulate some of that stuff. But let's start by getting the vector array set up. And again, folks, if you're not familiar with what we're doing, feel free to ask questions. If you're not familiar with coding in general, that's fine. Feel free to chat in other ways, ask questions, whatever you like. Okay, so collision data is going to be a vector2. In fact, it should be a vector2i, I think. But look this up. What is the syntax in a GL shader? The wiki pages for this are bright white, and I don't. Let me just a couple of these. Always forgetting to do stuff that I'm supposed to do before the stream. We're going to do a vector of signed integers because I don't know. Correct, Otel. Well, a couple of reasons. It is Godot and we switched to C#. Two reasons is performance. Well, the primary reason was performance. And we were originally using Visual Studio Code, but we switched over to Visual Studio because that's a better IDE. Vec2. Okay. This buffer. This is a Vec2. Okay, so x is equal to 0. Okay, so the x should be this, and then this. So the thing that we're using right here is a compute shader in GL shader language. If you're not familiar, shaders are processes run right on the graphics card. We are using one for the sprite rendering, but this is a compute shader, which is really just a, how would we put it? Just a function that gets run on the graphics card with a block of memory sent to it. We do this because it's super duper fast. And we need something fast because we're doing a lot of potential collisions and calculations. The movement logic, behavior logic of the entities is already a burden. We have removed rendering as a substantial burden using the aforementioned shader method. But collision is a big burden. We tried built-in Godot. That was way too expensive. We tried low-level optimized in Godot. Still too expensive. We moved over to C#. That sped up a lot of things, but the low-level Godot collision was still too much. So we have switched over to a compute shader, which is probably overkill. But we're doing it anyway. It has let us get several thousand things with brute force collision. That is, we are not doing any sort of spatial culling early. We are just checking everything against everything else. That can run in under a millisecond on the GPU. There are extra cost considerations to have there, but it means that we can remove collision handling as another burden. Okay, collision data is now a vector 2. That breaks at least a couple of things. This is going to be a new vector 2i of size max collisions, and then all the way down here. Oh, Thank you. The dots did indeed go red. It has. My sound has been a little bit flaky again recently. So if you see anomalies, or I'm sorry, if you hear anomalies, let me know. This guy is lurking off to my right here, looking at me, and I don't know precisely what he wants. The food dish might not be full enough. It avoids some of the problem, so if you're not aware, cats don't like their whiskers touched. The reason for that is that's effectively a sensory organ. Cat whiskers let them tell what's close to their face. If a cat squeezes through something and they're not substantially obese, if the whiskers touch the edge, that means it'll touch the edge of their body. But if the whiskers don't touch, that means they can walk right through. So that is something that will make the cat uncomfortable if they keep brushing their whiskers. And most pet food bowls will cause that to happen. And then you pair that with the fact that the pet food bowl requires them to lean down at a posture that isn't great for their back. So, that's why the first reason is why you will often get cats, the meme of cats not acting as if their food dish is empty when the food is up against the edge. That's because they don't want to cram their face up against the edge and disturb their whiskers. So what you can do is get shallow dishes for them. And if you want to help with the back pain problem that the low dishes can cause, back and neck, you can elevate it a little bit. Whether putting it on a raised platform or just getting one that's it's like 6 inches off the ground or something for an average house cat. This has been your cat care tangent. Yeah, Tass, so what I found out as far as what I thought was an indexing problem was actually that I was loading the wrong data into the entity information buffer, resulting in me essentially parsing the wrong stuff. That can happen because it's entirely bits that we're throwing into the buffers here. Entirely bits. Okay, so we're going to do a quick check here. Stuff is probably broken. Oh, there's a first sign. Um... 104 here. Should just be able to typecast that. That sounds familiar there, Sage. But that's all I can say. It sounds familiar. Well, welcome back then. Welcome back. We are in the midst of deep coding. much has changed since you last saw them. I'm expecting left pran. Let's rebuild. Every now and then it does not detect it. Gotta check a wiki here. Hello, PSS. Utah. I wouldn't be able to say. I'm not familiar with the count of birds in states. There will be kind of a narrative, but it's largely like an action-y game. GLSL data types. Well, that should be the right way to parse it. No 4 again. It's been going pretty well there, Sage. It is interesting. It's claiming that there is a missing close paran. It's actually unlikely to show up on phones at this point. The performance equations are pushing it further off of that. What is missing here? Something wrong. It asserts that there's something wrong on this line here. It's still in codename phase. We're still calling it Nyanite Survivors. There hasn't really been a different game. I suspect you might be misremembering something. Let's just see what the error is this way. Probably. I mean, this is the 97th stream. Wouldn't be last year. Uncertain. Oh, well, this'll stop it. Of course, it's capitalized here. Build. Okay, this is still the old one. Okay, it updated it, though. That's good. I mean, we've made some progress, James. We've made some progress. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what it thinks is wrong with this line here. It doesn't like this line. It's saying that the closure of the paran, it's detecting this paran and it doesn't like it. All right, thanks for swinging through again there, Sage. Ah. Being very slow to update the code here. All right, now we're back to that one. It's a different line in the... So on this side, it's calling this line 104. So collision buffer data, collision data X. Over on this side, that's line 105. I don't know what the actual difference ends up being. What's it calling line 1? Unclear. Ah. Yeah, this one. The compute line. Okay. That is a... Okay, that's an integer, so it shouldn't be... Oh, because I'm supposed to cast it to an int. It's a uint. I want it to be an int. Thank you. There we go. Okay. It will totally function. Okay. We're having faulty collisions, but we're getting them is the thing. So this is a start. So now we need to make sure that all of the data is actually correct, because there is the possibility that we've still got a spacing issue with these. So I'm not 100% on how this is playing out, but we're going to find out. Hello, Jace, and no. Please forgive me, my memory for names that aren't constantly reinforced is unreliable. Okay, so we're going to go in and we're going to look at this portion here. Should never be able to be null. Should never be able to be null there. The only time that the IDs get restored is after a removal, and the removals happen in a linear fashion. And it shouldn't be able to go into the removal array if it's already there. Now, we could make this ID indexed again just to make it cleaner. Yes, the removal buffer is completely cleared out after each cycle. And the collision buffer is self-overwriting. That is, we only read the first X, and X is reset each time. So entity IDs are a big Q. Hello, Colin. Welcome. So every time we create one, we give it a new ID from the list. Every time we remove one, we put that ID back at the end of the list. So as long as we don't create max entities in one frame, we should never have to worry about a conflict there, because we always release them before we try to create them. Because for it to get the error that we're talking about, when we get entity, for it to have an error there, that implies that the ID of target has already been removed, or that it never existed. Which would be a problem. So let's wrap that for now, and we're going to go into get entity. We're going to go into actual get entity. We assert in C#. Yeah. This is still not good. Every time I do this, it's going to destabilize the program. It does not, unfortunately. I do not recall a question about the UFC tournament. Did you once ask about, like, favorite airplanes? Boy, that's choppy. Yep. So this is why we're not getting an error, but it's still not good. Okay, we're constantly getting a bad entity out of that. Rectify the problem. We're missing a close bracket, and I mean, thank you, IDE, I guess. Okay, well, we're definitely getting null. So these are indices that are not resulting in things. No, we have some even numbers. We? Yes. Got a 142 in there. Many odd numbers, though. There's a bunch of 146. It is definitely possible that stuff coming back is strangely padded. How could we check that? Oh, well, here's an idea. It's always one. We get a collision, it will only write one. 1. That's got an ID of 2. Why does that have an ID of 2? That shouldn't be possible. This does imply an offset problem. Then we've got a bunch of zeros. Okay. Let's look at our data extraction here. Our run shader here. So I wonder if the Godot vector type is not translating over in the same way that it should, or that we want it to. Run our shader, and then we are going to get collisions data from that. So we're going to go to here. And we're going to let it run once, because that should result in... So this is no collisions. Run for a bit. It should not be loading any data like this. Even accounting for a weird offset, it's very strange to be getting this kind of loadout. Because again, this should all be 1. And we're passing this in as an integer. It's not unsigned. Okay, is there something wrong with the collisions buffer? So you should never have to update the collisions buffer because we're just going to overwrite the thing. There's never a point where we're writing to it that isn't here. It's an array, so it shouldn't care the buffer size. It will always round up the end of it, but it should be fine. Having a buffer structure end in a unbounded array is supposed to be fine for the sizing of it. But we do know that part of the problem is we're getting what amounts to gibberish back, which could result in it targeting IDs that are not in the collection. So that's good and bad. It's good in that we have a probable cause to the issue. It's bad in that it doesn't make sense that that issue is happening. Okay, so this is binding 3. We are setting up our buffers. Binding 3 is the collisions buffer. And the collisions buffer is using collisions bytes. And collisions bytes is being populated from collisions data, which is the vector2 integer by max collisions. And we do have... let's double check here. Max collisions. Yep. Okay. So... how is it getting garbage data in it? Okay, let's just try purging it out each time. Or let's force an update of it each time. We should not need to, but let's do it. So this is us purging collision count. This won't actually purge it, but... this will set it to whatever it was last time. But we're updating it here. We are... yeah, this should not actually do anything. And given how choppy it is, I suspect we are getting the issue still. There's my run shader. Okay. So again, looking at this, setting this to 1 didn't do anything, which is strange. Our data types again here. Do. So on the shader side, it would be a UVec. On the collision manager side, we don't have anything but an integer. Now, on the shader side, we are still calling it an integer. Those data values should stack. And it should be okay with vector 2 in general because it likes 2 or 4. If I recall from the reading. Are we messing with collisions buffer anywhere else in this? Only here. Okay. We are never going to change it. This should be nothing but zeros. Run for a bit. Okay. If we don't touch it, it's nothing but zeros. That means us writing to it is causing it to be scrambled. Or at least the way that the data is coming back is scrambly. Again, it's weird that we're able to get odd numbers out of that. Because again, we're passing in 1. Still implies that the data type is off-center here. Twitch ads starting in just a moment. We're going to look at our bytes here. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to look closer. And we're back. See if you can see this. This run by. We know that the data is coming back wrong. Go for a bit. odd. $570 collisions, and we are always loading one, which means in the collisions buffer, we have nothing. Nothing. It shouldn't, but I wonder... Troublemaker. Run for a bit. Okay, I think getting it is destructive. Four bytes, 4 bytes, 4 bytes. Okay. So something about the way that it's casting it. Okay, so bytes once again. Okay, now we have nothing again. Nothing. Okay, there are no collisions, which is weird. Oh, no, okay. There are now collisions happening. Okay, these are all correct. Okay, so this should be a span of vector 2s. Which are all 1s. This is correct. Now we are going to copy that into the data array, which is a vector 2i array. Which is all 1s. But why? But why? At the moment, it is working. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not getting the wrong things, but all 1s. What sorcery is this? All right. Save. Still way slower than I want it to be, but we'll get there. Shouldn't it be a bitwise end? Because we only want bits that are both 1 to come out of this. Because if it's a bitwise OR, every bit... Yeah. Target to source. Okay, so we have a collision check. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap some of this logic here. Ultimately, I feel like I want to get rid of this, where there is a per entity limit. We are unlikely to have to worry about any one entity hitting that limit. And this just adds some complexity that I don't think we need. Okay. So we're ignoring the per entity here. Now let's wrap this part up. We're using an unsigned int because that's what we're getting in. We'll cast it inside here. That's still fine. That's still fine. We're setting it to will be source and target. So this will jump through the same hoops, where it's going to find out which slot that it wants to try to put it in. If that's within limits, it will add that source to target. Otherwise, it will decrement it again. So if this is why we did this. Necessarily like this notation, but we're going to do it because it's a single line operation. Okay. So what this will do is, if either of them could collide because of their masking, so if they're going through the whole list, if neither of these exceed max entities, if we have not already checked it, that is, we're not doing any duplicate checks. If we do not already have max collisions, then we're going to retrieve them. If both of them are active, and either of them could collide with the other, we're going to do a distance check. If they are within collision radius of each other, and Mason left the play area. I made eye contact with Sky. Sky really is a bit of an SCP sometimes. If you make eye contact with him, he's aware that you are aware of him. So if it's within distance here, or if the shapes overlap, then if the source can collide with the target, then we triad collision source target. If the target can collide with the source, target source. Okay. Doesn't like something in the script. Apparently it's fine. Try again. There we go. It's not updated. Okay. We're still getting phantom collisions here. We're parsing more and more of them are triggering the error state. So I'm saying we're definitely getting phantoms because the yarn balls are disappearing without hitting an enemy entity. Did I leave weird logic in somewhere? Did I leave testing logic in somewhere? Let's make sure that we're still getting the results that we want out of this by substituting in 1. Built. See, we can see some of the yarn balls are popping immediately. That shouldn't be able to happen. Okay, we're getting gibberish values again. There is something that is causing that to happen. But what that could be is unclear. They shouldn't actually be colliding with the player. It's not out of the question. And welcome, Fire. Here. Radius of 8. Radius of 8. Okay. We've got the right radii. It's less are there collisions, and it's why are there collisions that are not 1, 1. Because I'm forcing that value. And we let it keep running so I can gracefully exit. So we're dragging because we're doing this lots. Well, that and we're parsing more and more collisions as we go. Okay, so we're getting to see one of the idiosyncrasies here. Do you see it working? It's not why it working now. You were not working moments ago. Oh, I hate that so much. So look at that. Look at that. We got 120 frames a second. We have yarn balls colliding with the blobs. Not 100% reliably, but it's happening. No debug messages. So we can expand their hitboxes. The slime's hitbox is tricky because it encompasses the entirety of the slime, so it's taller than it is, and like the yarn ball is wider than it looks. We should be getting more hits than we are. But that's a tuning kind of thing. We are getting less function at the moment, I think. Yeah, we're definitely getting blobs not colliding here. Okay. That should, in every way, not have been working. Because this was not set to make it work. See, now it's failing because we're getting a bunch of random values. Might have to do... these are up a little. Error state. Definitely error state. Might have just been some bizarre coincidence based on the flow of code. For those of you at home, what we're seeing, what you may not be able to see because tiny screen that I can't zoom in, is this is numbers. If there are numbers here, something has gone wrong. We know the bytes are coming in correctly. We know... Let's scrutinize it again, just to be sure. Exactly, Parakeet. Numbers bad. So this is us extracting the collision data out. So we step over this, we can see that we're still getting values that don't make sense. I'm sorry, values that we're confident are wrong. Because we are getting the this is null output when we're extracting it from the collections. But we know if we force it that we can get the correct results. So something is missing, you know? Something about the way that this data is going out and coming back, we're running into issues. Okay, we're going to zero this thing out each time. So we set collisions bytes a grand total of once, I think. So this is where we create a duplicate of a zeroed out list. Just for the purposes of priming the buffer. So by doing this, we should zero it out each time. That shouldn't be necessary, but we're going to do it anyway. Still getting error cases. Wait. Is the shader's global index 0 based? It's gotta be. It's gotta be, right? Yeah. Well, no, the first byte. But the first byte is... That's controlled by the number of collisions. Not by the global index. Let's let it run a little longer here. Let's get some blobs on the player. What I'm looking for here is a 0. I mean, these should be in generally ascending order. There can be a bit of wonkiness in that because it can do the left-right flip there. I'm not seeing any zeros. Okay, let's force the test here. Okay, we are going to go into the entity, and we have our collision mask here. Bullets collide with nothing. Will only count a collision if the player is touched. But we are already getting... Should not be possible for anything other than 0 to collide here. This leads us back to the idea that we're getting gibberish somehow, but we are 100% controlling that. Is it? Let's change this here. Hello, Ember. Ember needs snuggles. She's still a bit sniffly. Okay. If either of them are null, we print the pair. Uh-oh. It was still spooling the buffer there. Lots of 49s, lots of 41s, 45s. Yeah. What's up with that? Interesting. But what does it mean? It implies to me that the second value that we're getting here is to some extent nonsense. But the why and how, let's see here. Unpause, let it run. Take that out for now because it is a, just like we saw, that does drag on the system to have that going. So, what about this could create that pattern? Each of these should be independent of each other. The X, Y, and the Z are each cycling things. And we are currently using them to index things. We're not doing any of the workgroup split shenanigans. This is being ignored now. This is 1, so that part's a null op right now. It wouldn't technically matter. No matter what, like, it doesn't matter what, if there's something going wrong with this at the moment. Like, functionally, it would matter. Using it, it would matter. But this doesn't change the fact that it's referencing data, you know? It is still possible that this data is getting scrambled, that the shader entities are somehow getting scrambled. It looks right. It looks right. And we're not getting negative numbers out of the vectors. And if the vectors were offset, I would expect we would eventually get negative numbers. Maybe they're too small for that, but it still would seem odd if the, well, no, it would the bits would have to be offset for that, really. But yeah, I mean, it's unlikely. It's unlikely. But I'd expect really weirder numbers. They're still coming through relatively in sequence, you know? We should at least be getting much larger numbers out of it if they were off-centered. Hello, Minty. Offset Bits would be a pretty good chiptunes band name. We are currently puzzling over data that isn't set how it's supposed to be set. All right, let's... I saw another good one where they essentially said something like, can you tell which one of these clips is generated by AI? And they used one of the AI video makers, I think it was Sora at the time. And they essentially had the one clip that it was the same thing. It was they clearly supplied it with reference photos. So it was the same bench in the park. And one of them was them positing or proposing the question. And the second one was of them, but with a really weird like wind effect on their hair and them like jumping up and down on and off of the bench. With the weird blurry motion. Oh. It's Entity Manager. That's why I'm not finding some of our code there. Okay, so we're going to go down to here again. Step over it the first time, and it has nothing in it. Okay, there should now be stuff showing up. Yup. So here's data from bytes. This retrieves the span. Which contains the data as we would expect it. So 1 into 25. There's a 1 into 25. Next one starts with a 2. Yep. Okay, so we're definitely getting a pattern. It's generally lower numbers right now. Okay. This is supposed to be... So, when we are setting up a shader, set up our dispatch here. Where are we putting that? This one. Setting up our buffers. Okay, we're preparing it. We set up a series of work groups. X by Y. These are currently about 1,000 each. Right, Parakeet. I would expect at the very least large numbers if we were getting offsets. because we'd be getting things in the final byte, which should be really big numbers. Since we are dealing with negatives, all we'd have to get is that first bit, and, you know, things would get different. And since it would usually be the first or second byte of another one offset, then we should be able to get a big negative. Okay, but we have 1,000 of these. Then within the shader, we have the workgroup sizes. Each of the workgroups has a size of 32 on the X and the Y axes. It should be the workgroup ID times the workgroup size plus the local ID. So workgroup 0 starts with 0, workgroup 2 starts with 32, that kind of thing. And then we have a local iterator. Each of these does that independently. Because of the way we've set it, this is always 1. We don't care about Z. So these numbers should be between 0 and 32,000. 31,999, you know. Which, looking on it, I feel like I saw in the documentation, this is 0-based. So we're never getting 0. Booleans. Things are passing this. And they're getting past this. They're getting all the way to here. For the data to be wrong as far as what's loaded in based on these, this would have to be wrong. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. It implies that what we're setting here is incorrect. But X and Y seem to be okay as far as that is concerned. It's source and target. I mean, before we were doing this. Because once we saw it coming back properly, and then it fell off. It stopped working. But sadly, we have to consider the one time it worked as a complete fluke, because that only happened the one time, and every other time it has been consistently broken. Okay. Okay, to a different known number. All right. Oh, pseudo known number. should... Yeah, yeah. Good call. Build. Okay, what this is doing is it's systematically exterminating them. Okay, let's look at it on the C# side so that we can capture the data. Since we're capturing null events and we are just iterating over the collection, is systematically purging all of them. Now that should mean that the player object goes away. Actually, no. Yeah, it should mean the player object goes away too. But the player object was still there. Huh. First moment. First we need collisions. All right. Coming back. It is how we'd expect. We are getting a growing list with matched X and Y, with matched indices, or it's matched to the index. Which is weird, is it not? Especially given that none of these are going away. We should be getting some of the blobs getting wiped out here, given the numbers of collisions we were seeing. But we'll get to that. Would it be something about the offset in there? Let's just do a quick check as far as this. Let's not get off track there. That doesn't matter. We're interested in why the data is coming back wrong. Because the only thing that should be able to collide is an enemy with the player. Doesn't seem to be relevant that in the test there. So we use this to get which entity it is. So this should always be relevant to where it got the data from. It's like it's coming out wrong is the thing. Like, for one, why did this work this time? So it's always 1. Actually, it's always 0. Always 0. Uh, 0. That's the player object. That's the player object. The reason that the player doesn't go away when we do that is only the bullets have a kill effect on them. It would have to be a bullet colliding with the player for the player to go away. That's why the bullets going away means that a bullet is colliding with them. And that's not supposed to be possible. And we're always getting... We are always getting an entity, so we're never going into an error state. Um, but it's also odd. No, we're getting maximum collisions. Huge number of collisions. On the plus side, it's running very swiftly. Just, it's very swiftly not doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, okay. We are properly converting it over here. What this will do is this will dump whatever we're getting out of that collection also into an integer span. This shouldn't change. This should not alter what we've got, but it'll be an interesting check, you know? We're going to let it run a little bit. Oh, wait, this won't matter unless we do this. And that would have failed. Interesting. No, it wouldn't have failed. This is just a no-op kind of statement. It's only when we set it to the global index. Let's check that again. Forget that is the error case is when we are dealing with global invocation ID. Again, I'm not showing you the screen for this because it's very bright white. Here, I'll show you just a moment. Bright white. Unsigned integers. And they are low enough numbers. They will always be low enough numbers that we shouldn't get a conflict in byte configuration between an integer and an unsigned integer. It will always be which work group times the size of the work group plus the local invocation ID. So, again, it shouldn't matter if this... I mean, it does matter if these get the wrong ones. A lot of the signs are pointing to this being weird. Like, these values being off. Because these are what we write to the buffer ultimately. Just for laughs here. Yeah, that shouldn't do anything, but let's find out if it do anything. It don't do anything. We're still seeing bullets go away. Bullets should not go away. That means the wrong indexes are getting into that collection. In actual gameplay, would bullets go away? Yes, they would. But the way that the collision works right now... Interaction... Collision interaction... Outgoing... Bullets do this. And that is, they tell the entity manager, get rid of the target. And if a bullet is going away, that means that a bullet is both the source and the target. Because the source has to be a bullet for this to be emitted, and the bullet has to be a target for it to be subjected to this. Two, and it's looking for 4. It is a bullet, and it's looking for an enemy. That's... That's right. That is an enemy there. And target's ID is 2. Entities to remove is a hash set. Okay, this is a bullet being targeted. Let's say bullet there. Bullet with an ID of 1 is targeting a bullet with an ID of 5. Okay, that is a never should happen. That should not be possible there already. That's why bullets are vanishing. Now, one possibility is that this is wrong. That this mask is incorrect. I mean, no, all of this is happening on the GPU and I can't touch it. Now, I can try to extract information, but part of the fun of this little bit of debugging task is that the state of the returned data is part of the actual problem set, because we get the data back as bytes, and we have to cast that over the data type that it's supposed to be. There is the possibility that it is the wrong data being written. There is also the possibility of a mismatch between the structures on the GPU side, the code, and the structures on the C# side. With the added wrinkle that there are extra rules that are kind of documented in the most dense way possible. Stuff like, there's a reason there are 2 variables here. And that's that this sort of structure likes a particular number of things. It likes multiples of 8 bytes, and it tries to stack them up into blocks of 32. So, like, a vector 2, it kind of likes. But it will stack as many of them up as it can in order to get to 32. This structure here is not 32 bytes, so it would want padding there. But what can happen is that it would squish them together and have the active and 1 value of a position end up here. So we intentionally jam these here so that a full 32-byte block is represented by each entity in a structure. Now, it's much more tolerant of this kind of thing. Like, oh, an arbitrary number of uints. It's fine with that. Let's try that. I don't know that it will solve our nonsense data problem, but, you know. Okay, blobs were being wiped out when they shouldn't be, but it's a start. It's a start. We would end up being it would end up being akin to functionally that should be the same thing. Because we would end up needing to do it as two things the size of floats. Or uints or ints or something like that. Is ultimately what we would be having there is an array that's like 8 bytes long. A byte array that's 8 bytes long. Which is the equivalent of 2 uints or floats or whatever. Oh. Well, okay, we're getting the right sort of things going away, but they're going away when they shouldn't. Which is a start. Good point. Good point. I left this debugging data in there because we never got around to using it, but let's throw this in here so that we can check it. Why did you jump back like that? Byte. Wait, byte. Ah. There's a little bit of song and dance with this. Okay, let's do this cleanly. This should be 4 uints, which would be 16 bytes. Okay, so on the outgoing side, we are getting the right size. So then on the incoming side, this should be at most 64,000 bytes. Oh, wait. It's 16,000. 16,000 vector 2s. So 32,000. Okay, 128,000 bytes. So that is corresponding to the vector 2s. And we have nothing in that, so we should get nothing in our data collection. Yep. And there should be correspondingly nothing in our total collisions data. Yep. Run for a moment. We're definitely seeing things go away. We do have values in the collection here. We should have 2 and a 10 as our first value in collisions data. Okay. It does seem to be coming out coherently. But it does seem to be counting up in 4s. So 2 and 6 and 10 and 14 and 18 and 22. All right, so Y is suspect. Like, we already have something wrong with the second one. There is something wrong with the second one. In theory. Trying to think of how we would get that odd multiple. Okay. I wonder if... Let's test something here. We need to figure out... Let's look for consistency again here. One and two. Okay. So, what we're going to do... If... Is not equal a C-sharp thing? Is bang equal not equal in C-sharp, or is it some other notation? Okay. -2. Because it's always 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, that kind of thing. I want to see if it's sometimes not. Y is never something that doesn't match that. What would that even mean? I mean, if that's some sort of memory offset, that's a really weird one. Like, that is a very specific pattern. Starting with 2 and increase by 4? The slimes are currently set to follow the mouse. I haven't coded a track the player thing yet. These slimes currently have a lot of, because why not, logic in them. Or, I'm sorry, just because logic in them. Okay, so we have a very weird pattern in the Y values. So how could that pattern be getting into that? All right. What this will do is up to the collision limit, it will try to add X and Y. There will be some parallelism oddities in this, but we should get every number. Like, it should be trying to get every number in there. Will it? No, the permutations are way too high for that. But why did it do that? We don't know what X is, but it's always 2 plus 4X. Okay. The values are not following our established pattern. They are all over the place because, again, we have no control over which order X and Y get processed. In theory, X and Y are being processed in 32 chunks of 32, but they can still overlap with each other wildly. But we're likely to get chunks, like bursts of particular numbers. So we have essentially this should be so X is the first one to get processed most of the time. So it should be it's supposed to be a nested for loop, but we're going to get idiosyncrasies in that. It should be iterate over X, and within X you iterate over Y, and with Y you iterate over Z, and then within each of those you iterate over this. Nested for, but again, we have no control over which order they're coming in at. So we know that global invocation ID makes sense up to this point. Like, these are numbers that make sense. We are culling some of them because they don't follow the rules that we need them to. So, if for any reason one of these values is greater than max entities, we do have a failsafe of adding one to ensure that if there's a fractional number, we don't get a round down and miss something. So we can overflow a little bit here. That's okay. We just ignore it if we do. We only want ones where the Y is greater than X. So for each X, we parse every following Y. And so we don't parse the same variable. So I mean, it can't hurt. Or parans. But we should be getting bailout cases here. Now let's move this all the way down here. So this is after all of our checks. So we should be culling down a non-trivial number of them here. In particular, we're going to not try to record this after we hit our 16,000 count. Additionally, which doesn't really matter because it would get stopped inside this. But we're going to follow this rule in particular. Wait. recording them as X, Y. Yeah. X and then Y. Source target. Source target. Right? Up to a limit. How is 164 getting past this? We definitely have some sort of data structure anomaly here. Is it backwards? Is it backwards? That is, are the indices backwards? No, the X and the Y. Because that's a distinct possibility. Is the order of the X and the Y matter? And it would have a substantial impact on some of the things. Now, it still leaves out the question of how are bullets colliding with bullets. But that should not be able to happen. So there's two ways we could go about this as far as correcting that. Or at least... Okay. Oh, we can test that outright. We can just straight up test that. First, let's get rid of that, because that's going to cause all kinds of fun there. Instead... Yes. So the workgroup size is always... Sorry, no. The workgroup, the number of workgroups is always the number of entities divided by 32, plus 1. And then within each one, it's 32. Workgroup size is 32. And so workgroup X is max entities divided by 32 plus 1. And then workgroup Y, the number of workgroups Y is the same as workgroup X. And then within the shader, the workgroup size is 32X, 32Y. So we have a bunch of extraneous iterations because of that plus 1. Divided by 32. That is... right here. And max entities is 1,000 times 32. Right here. That is the ensure it equals something. Ensure it equals a multiple of 32 there. There you go. Ember came over for Snuggles again. Her sneezing is... She's still sniffling a little bit, but her sneezing seems to have calmed down, which is good. You can tell she still feels a little off. It just means that she's that much snugglier when she decides to get up and move around. Okie dokie. Alright, so, forcing a test on this. Okay, so when we write out to this, x will always be 2. Y will always be 4. Up, up. Hey there, vampire. We're doing pretty good. Well, that's not right at all. Those are completely the wrong numbers. Leave something wrong in there. I get the impression that the old shader code is somehow being left in there. Oh, all kinds of stuff is not working, vampire. Oh. Build. Wonder if there's a way for us to have code that says forcibly rebuild that. Because I wonder if there's some sort of, like, caching going on. Favorite zombie movie? So, in general, I'm not a big fan of zombie movies. I get the original intent, as far as, you know, a metaphorical commentary on American consumerism. Hurrah, whatever. That time has passed. I think it was Zombieland. I think Zombieland, the first one, was pretty good. Nice and comedic. You still had the general idea of the threat, but you also had... Exactly, Lord, double tap. You also had that idea of kind of the aftermath of it. Without going down the road of, you know, the real monster was people all along, which is, I believe, an accurate result. Like, that's absolutely how things would go down. But, you know, I've seen enough movies about that. I mean, at this point, isn't everybody in Mortal Kombat 1? They seem to have given up on having some sort of, like, true coherency as far as, like, you know, their own fiction, and have just instead gone with the idea of, let's have all the crossovers. Which, I mean, more power to them. They're They found their audience. um, but I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, Rambo. Uh, was it the guy from several of the characters from Invincible? Okay, yeah. It's not writing the data that we told it to write. Aren't those movies the Scream series? Mr. Glass would be kind of hilarious in Mortal Kombat. Like, as a secret unlock character that just gets one hit killed and can't do anything? All right, let's see if we can flush it out here. I mean, I can't remember what was the name of that one? Unbreakable, right? It was one of those M. Night Shyamalan ones, you know? Favorite Mortal Kombat character? So full disclosure, my experience with Mortal Kombat was pretty much 1 and 2, and then a little bit of 3. Like arcade era, you know? I mean, I feel like the true classic is Scorpion. Like, for quite a while, he was sort of the face of Mortal Kombat. Haha. Hey there, DM. Yeah, folks, if it does seem like I'm talking to somebody you can't see in chat, I might be talking to Twitch if you're on YouTube, or YouTube if you're on Twitch. And I just realized I did not greet you over on Twitch. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we ran it over on the Godot side. It seems to have stopped choking, so maybe it redid the buffer. It did. Okay. X is 2, Y is 4. It's not supposed to work like that. That is not supposed to work. Yeah, on the YouTube side, there's more limitation as far as the real-time nature. The stream delay is a lot more constrained. As in, the delay is higher at minimum. But because YouTube buffers it into video form, it's oh hey, my alerts work. Good. Thank you, Parakeet. Thank you for the bits, Parakeet. Have a good night. Favorite part of Christmas as a child? It's stockings were always kind of fun, ultimately. Can't say that it was necessarily the favorite thing. I mean, let's all be very honest here. Getting stuff was pretty cool. But stockings were kind of fun. It was always like the first thing, you know? Okay, so if you recall, one of the things that I had said was that it should be impossible for x to be greater than y because we had a culling check in there. But having seen this, I get the impression that it was just like lingering code, let's call it. That runs, stop it. We go back into the collision check. Now we are going to this back. Save that. We just ran it on the C# side. We're going to take this code right here, put it right here, and do a return after. If it gets through all the checks, we will write to the buffer and be done. We are going to build here. We're going to run it on this side first. Everything is going away. The first X things that qualify go away. That's actually good. Sort of. We go here. Why are you working? Not yet, dimension. Is it dimensioned? You just got a lot of consonants in a row, so you're going to have to help me out here. Or is it diminished? Ah, there we go. Yeah. Diminished. Okay. Okay, so you might not be able to see it. Maybe it's too small on your screen, but let me pull this up here. This is how it should be. I'm sorry. These are the kind of numbers that are valid. X is less than Y. X should always be less than Y coming out of this. Now, it is technically possible in the actual code that Y would be greater than X because you can get it reversed. Like once it gets through the collision check, it can be reversed. This is again with the first 16,000 possible collisions would happen automatically. Right here, we're seeing some sort of problem in that it is not triggering that anymore. And that could be because the IDs have rolled past that now. Oh, dear. Okay. Now, once again, we're going to run it over on the Godot side. We can see some things are disappearing when they shouldn't. Now we're going to go over to the C# side. Worker here. So 1 and a 2. is a bullet and an enemy. They can't possibly be colliding right now. Okay. So to get anything written into the collection, we have to get at least this far. We have things that are colliding far away when they shouldn't. Let's look at that again. Source object. This is from the entity perspective. It's possible that the data that is making it into the shader is wrong. But we have... It is currently sitting at negative 2.6, negative 10.8. And that is a, just for reference, that is a bullet. This is an enemy, and it is way out of range. Way out of range. So this is negative 500, 780. So negative 530, 780 versus effectively right around 0. That is right on top of the player object. The target is off screen. Those shouldn't be able to collide. There's got to be a problem with my collision logic. It makes sense that they could have a comparison. It doesn't make sense that it passed the collision check. So it makes sense that it got to the distance check. So this should get us a vector 2. Now, I'm not 100% sure that this is functional, but target minus source, as far as vectors are concerned, should create the vector 2. So if I consider these both points, subtracting the source from the target should get me the vector from the source to the target. Then if I take that, and I square both of the directions, I should get the square of the length. I should get the length of the vector to it squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then if I add the two radii of the object together, in this case, it's always 8. They're all 8. So I get 16. 16 squared is the maximum distance. This should always be positive, since we're multiplying both of them together. In theory, Order of operations should make it so that that works. This is all pre-compiled. There shouldn't be a problem like that, but let's make sure. So the distance between these two should have been way bigger than 16 squared. Like, orders of magnitude. So this would have to be less than or equal to this. It's just not possible that that would have been the case. All right, let's... Two and a 4. It is a bullet. It is sitting at... -2, -10. That makes sense for a bullet. This is an enemy. Okay. So the next question is, are the entities... Are their positions right? This is ID 1 versus ID 2. The positions are correct. Radii are correct. Going out. Going out. Okay. Brute force. Run it here. Stop that. We're going to run it over here. We still got some invalid collisions going on. And do not worry as far as... Okay, it's 1 and 2. It's always getting the first bullet in the first enemy. Like, immediately they are colliding. And this math doesn't work. If this is the data it has to operate from, that doesn't make sense. Because we can pretty much ignore the source position information. So it's 1 and 2. So 2 minus 1 as far as position is concerned. Let's round it to 700 and 600. That is a big number. The distance squared between 1 and 2 is a large number. It is, in this case, 690 squared plus 650 squared. So the distance squared is big. 16 squared is much, much less than that. How can this be? Okay. So, based on this, I feel like this data is wrong. We are going to just write to the buffer, assuming that this passes. We are just going to write to the buffer whatever is in the X position's position. Actually, we'll do the Y position. Oh, hey, Aniji. I mean, it's coming along, Aniji. It's coming along. We are doing brute force collision checking using the GPU via a compute shader. And we're trying to debug that, which is tons of fun. Okay. Save it. We're going to build it over here. Run it. Well, no, it doesn't like something. Compile. Entity buffer for it here. Int. I mean, you should really like coding, and that doesn't mean you should like this kind of coding. It just means you should like structured functional thinking, but you do need to be prepared to sit there staring at a series of variables over and over for protracted periods of time. Doesn't matter if you're scripting it, if you're using a like visual box kind of flow language or something like that. There will be a point at which two numbers are what they shouldn't be. And in fact, there are two numbers that are what it should be impossible that they are. Run it over here. Run it over here. It's essentially a way of thinking. Programming is a way of thinking. Sequences of instructions and expectations. I think one of the disservices that artificial intelligence is doing, I'm sorry, not even AI, but what people are calling AI in the public mind, one of the disservices it's doing is anthropomorphizing programs. Terminology and expectation are using terms that are like, it thinks, it knows, it reasons. It doesn't. It is numbers in, numbers out. And to make things worse, these large language models are adding in randomization. So it's numbers in, sometimes numbers out. So what's going wrong, Diminished, is that we are going through and we're comparing the positions of things. And it's possible that the positions of those things, where we're checking the positions, is wrong. And it's wrong. So, see all these zeros. You might not be able to see zeros, but trust me, it's a bunch of pairs of zeros. Those shouldn't be zeros. Because what we're doing is right here, we're getting the data for the given entity out. And we're saying, okay, give me the position for that entity and record it. Actually, if it's entity X, if it's entity 0, it will always be that. We need an extra check. We need an extra check. We're going to see where entity 1 is. If it was always, if y was always 0, which it shouldn't be, but it could be, then we would always be getting 0, 0, which, okay, it's not what we wanted. Run it once. We're going to run it over here. It's going to be real slow because it's constantly writing stuff to the buffer, which is going to cause us to get stuff out of the buffer. Okay. else could we do here? Let's just add a... yes, we're doing collision checks. We are... I have a sneaking suspicion that the position that it's calculating on is not the actual position, which would skew all of our processing. Hello, Sammy. Ma'am. Sammy is blocking my keyboard. So she gets some back scratches for a moment. Because otherwise she's gonna stay a nuisance here. She wants intensive back scratches, but just so and only for exactly as long as she decides. Which, I mean, is to be expected, but the difficulty is she is one of those cats that gives you no signals as far as what those details are. She happily doesn't get super violent about it. But she will try to nip if you get it wrong. Camera 1, come on. It's active. And yes. The X and Y of the position values, which are vector 2s, they are a pair of floats, are spatial position. Greater than 0. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get the entity that is Y at this moment. And if that entity is active and it's not 0, we're going to write its position to the buffer. Okay, now we're going to make sure that that's actually happening. Says that the shader compiled properly. We're going to check the Godot side. It runs much more smoothly. Okay, we've got values coming in. Those are weirdly... Like, those are weird numbers. Those are real weird numbers. So the collision check, when we're actually doing it, right now we're not doing the actual collision check. When it runs, we are getting a result. So the return inside this thing, return is different inside the shader. So this is how we do a return. Anything we write in here is our return value. We cannot get information out of this in any other way. All of this is happening on the graphics card. Yeah. Take out the intermediary again. Continue here. Gracefully end it. Over to the Godot side, we're going to compile and run. And we go back over here, we put a breakpoint here, we run it. Those are weird numbers. Those are real weird numbers. So entity 0 is always going to be sitting at 0, 0. You see how all of these numbers have these decimal places in them? Where are those numbers? Where are the collision numbers coming from? These are not position numbers. Could those numbers be? Oh, okay. We are smushing floats into integers. But that should still work. That's just a cast which would truncate them. Continue. Close that. We're going to go into our collision manager. We're going to say it holds max entities. This is important. So what we're going to do is, instead of try write data here, we are going to just directly address the buffer here. we are going to okay. So the first thing we're doing is we're making sure it's within bounds. We also need to account for this. Equal to that. All right, so every time this loops right now, we're just going to say that max entity collisions happened, and we're going to dump the position of that entity into the corresponding one here. Now, it's not going to like that because it wants it to be an integer. So we're going to force it to be an integer. But if this works, we should be able to do a one-to-one comparison between the position that is on the shader and what we think we're passing. Over here, check the shader, it likes it, run it again. Shader still likes it, run it. Really choppy because we're doing a whole lot at once. Down to here. That. Run here. This in particular is wrong. Okay. Okay. Continue that. Stop the program. Okay, that's going to be our stopping point for the night. What we have discovered right there is that the position data on the shader is not what it should be. The fact that entity 0 had a position that was anything other than 0, 0 means that the data is wrong. Entity 0 is the player. The player spawns at 0, 0, and right now the player can't move. The player is always at 0, 0. It's the little robot in the middle of the screen right now. Will they eventually move? Yes, they will. Do they right now? Not at all. So a value of 8 is wrong. A value of 8 is just wrong. And we know by looking at the data initially that it is not 8 when we pass it down to the shader. So we have to figure out what's actually going on with that data. Why is it different? What could it be? Why is there an 8 there? What that implies to me is that the radius might be going there. And again, that should not be. Because the radius is the 4th value in the list. It is one uint, which is whether it's active or not, 0 or 1. It is its position, 2 consecutive float values. Then its radius. But maybe that's not right. Maybe it's getting packed differently. So we're going to have to look at that. That's just great. We'll have to look at the raw bytes of that. Oh, but that's for another time. Well, folks, I do hope you had a good time watching us code tonight. Last time we got... Last time you got to see us succumb to a pass the wrong variable in and then be puzzled because you don't realize you passed the wrong variable problem. It's either Discord or it's links. There you go. But this time we are fighting against byte-wise data structures. When we communicate to the shader, we are communicating in terms of bytes. So something is going wrong there, and we need to isolate it and figure out what it is. Once we've got that, we can resume wiring it into the collision logic. But yeah. Alright, folks, if you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. It helps the channel grow and will help you see stuff like this in the future. With all that said, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.